Continuing here. So to finish that thought, God knows where Satan's throne is, and it's right here in America. It's in the halls of Congress and Senate, these rubber stampers, these lapdogs for the money printing class. That's it. So if you want to know where the strongest, most powerful demonic forces are, that's where it is. We are the world's reserve currency. We are the most powerful nation militarily on the face of the earth, as far as we know. But, I wouldn't wager on it at this point. It could be Russia. But I, this is what we're screwing it up all over the world. We're the most influential nation. We're the trendsetters, and we're leading the way. And we're screwing it up for everybody. Okay, so Satan's throne, for all intents and purposes, there. So God knows what's been going on. And we, humans, Americans, are waking up to realize we're feeding the beast. Do you understand? The higher your cost of living, the more taxes you pay. That just means you're paying more. So now I'm kind of merging into talking about economics. And it's so important that people have a fundamental understanding of economic principles and start with a godly understanding. Okay, look at all the other creatures on the face. They've got no use for money. Okay, that's it. It doesn't make any sense to them. I mean, we can understand squirrels. They hoard up nuts for winter. We can get that. We can understand that, right? And we could understand barter a little bit, right? I don't know how much other creatures trade with each other. I wouldn't be surprised if I don't know of any. In fact, that's some interesting research to do, right? To look into other creatures that barter, that trade. So I'll give you this for that. I mean, see, they don't even have the imagination, likely. Like I said, I don't know right now, but I'm thinking there is no other creatures that even trade, that even barter with each other. What I've got is mine, and I'm keeping it. Stay away from it. I mean, there no doubt is examples of might makes right in the natural world. But again, how much of that is the corruption that humanity brought to the earth? You see, we tainted everything. We adulterated everything, and that includes the creatures. So would they be preying on each other, or would that... See, I have a hard time believing that God gets off on watching a lion take down a gazelle and rip its guts out and devour it. I do. I really do. I'm not sure that, that's not part of this curse that befell the earth, because it's written in Scripture something to the effect that one day the lions will lay down with the lambs and eat straw. So this ultimately may be the case in that perfect world. That ideal world may not involve death of any of the animals either. They may live forever. And quickly so many people would point out, oh my gosh, that's so stupid because it would overpopulate the animals. Look, God's got a God that laid out the universe and all the galaxies and all the solar systems and gave us all the flora and fauna, gave us our fertility. Okay, so don't you think, just come on, think, use your imagination to imagine God taking away the fertility when the Earth or any planet reaches its carrying capacity, right? So we don't have to worry about that stuff. That's all in God's hands, in His domain. We should be good stewards of the planet. That's all we can do is just not pollute it, not wreck up the joint, okay? So I'm a big environmentalist in that sense. I believe all packaging, when I've seen these reports on what's happening in the oceans with the plastic and all this, yes, everything should be 100% biodegradable in as much as fish can, at the end of the day, eat that stuff. That means we could dump it right into the ocean and it'd be fish food, okay? Good, healthy fish food. That's what all the packaging should be, either that or completely reusable, not recyclable even, reusable. Just like the old milk jugs. I can remember as a kid, you go to the local dairy, there was all these drive-through dairies around. People love to go, you get the milk in a jug, and when you're done with your milk, you bring it back to the place. So maybe if the supermarkets, oh, that's too much of a workload, we can't handle, then don't. Then that's good. We start opening more mom and pops again that can cater to it. Put them out of business. Say, look, either you conform to this new rule that's going to, be environmentally prudent, or you go down the tubes. That's capitalism. So yeah, there's ways to do this, protect the earth thing that is logical and reasonable, okay? And we have a duty to do that. But just remember, God's got the population thing under control. We don't need to worry about that, okay? I really believe that He's able to remove our fertility. We can say, yeah, but you can always get around that, and there's sperm banks and egg donors, and you can find a surrogate mother and all this sort of thing. Look, infertility is infertility. Okay, so God's will is going to get done, and if He wants us infertile or any of the creatures infertile, that'll be done. All I'm saying is we'd have an entirely different paradigm. But I don't complain about the organic suffering; it's across the board. But what I do complain about is the invented artificial suffering. And this has everything to do with economics. Understand that. Because on its face, you say, logically speaking, from a believer's point of view, the earth is God's. We're all God's children, loved, beloved equally, and He wants us to share the earth. That's what any good parent would do. They wouldn't say preference, say, all these kids are blessed because they were born into wealth, hereditary wealth, and they have a right to rule over all the others. I mean, this paradigm is completely made up. It's artificial. It's constructed. It's manufactured to steal. This is the tyranny. You got to understand how you're being tyrannized by ever increasing your burden. That means your cost of living, your cost to exist. How do they do it? They use money. Do you understand? This earth belongs to all of us. So if God had His way, which is, it's all very logical and reasonable to assume, to presume, that we would be born rich, we would be born wealthy, we would be born prosperous, okay, unthinkably so. And it had nothing to do with money in any of its sundry manifestations, any of its incarnations, various incarnations, okay? No form of it. Anything that represented money would not exist. And this is what we're shooting for. This is this ideal world. There's no way for any man to get an advantage over another. Furthermore, there's not going to be any men there that want to get an advantage over others. Those are the ones that they're going to be in hell because their values were screwed up. They were not of the same mind as God. Their hearts were impure. They were not pure. They were not clean. They were not found worthy and deserving of inheriting a better world because they wanted to get an advantage over others. They liked money. They loved money. They loved this paradigm because it worked for them. They were able to succeed. They were able to excel and do very well because not because they were smarter, but because they were more aggressive. They were more cutthroat. They were more willing to step on toes. They were more assertive. Okay, and they were taught and trained from a very young age that this showed they had common sense, that they were practical, that these were the ones that were pragmatic. Okay, and that's why they deserve to be successful and to be exalted. And these rich and famous ones of the world and these uber wealthy ones, right, should be held in high esteem by all the rest of the minions that are unsuccessful and floundering out there with jobs that are just menial jobs, that unskilled and deserve to be stolen from, right? Because that's essentially what we're talking about here. I mean, let's look at the history of slavery in all its sundry. I mean, feudalism has been going on for a long time. It's theft. It's tyranny. That's what they're doing. And so they've got this high-tech neo-feudalism going on. It's a science. They've got it down to a fine science. They're walking this tightrope very successfully, very effectively. It's stealing from the have-nots. They do it through stealing your labor. So they get the producers, those that are most valuable to society, to believe that they are the least valuable. They reduce a man to a loaf of bread. They can, hey, you're easily replaced. You're unskilled labor. You're a dime a dozen. And any of you that weak and whiny, I mean, just go out to pasture. Just go die under a bridge, blow your brains out, just live in your car, couch surf. We don't care about you. We got plenty of young, strong workers. So if you're a weak link in the chain of society and the wheels of society continuing to turn and the status quo establishmentarian in the way that they want to continue this trajectory toward death and destruction, ever increasing wealth imbalance, ever growing poverty, then just go away because you're stupid. You should have jumped on the bandwagon a long time ago. Look, I mean, didn't your parents teach you? Didn't your teachers teach you? If you can't beat them, join them. This is cutthroat, hyper-competitive social Darwinism. Duh, get with the program, man. We're down to the wire here. I mean, We're really getting divided here. The system is acute now, and it's got legs of its own. There's no sign of hope that it's ever going to turn around. There is no light at the end of the tunnel. It's just going to get bleaker and bleaker and bleaker as your burden continues to increase by way of your cost of existing, your cost of living increasing, and wages being stagnant and falling behind. People say, what are you talking about? Minimum wage has been going up right along with the cost of living. Yeah, exactly. Well, the cost of living's been doing this, and wages have been doing this. So the cost of living's been going up in leaps and bounds, and while the wages, the cost of living adjustments to wages, particularly minimum wage, has been going up in inches. Do you understand? So it's falling way behind. It's the same as if your cost of living had stayed the same for the last 60 years, but your wages kept falling. You see, mathematically speaking, there is no appreciable difference at all. At all. There's just none. It's the same effect. Wages just keep falling. And it's theft. Do you understand how they steal? It's barely stealthy at this point. It's barely hidden. So we're all waking up to it and we go, yeah, it's true. And, and then, we all have to ask, why can't we all be prosperous? Why can't we all be rich? Why can't we all be wealthy? Why can't we share? Well, we could. And when God gets his way, not if, that's the paradigm we're going to have. So you want to be there. And you want to be able to speak powerfully with anybody that wants to get into economics. And so that's why I tell people, get educated. And one of the first things you want to do, and this was a recommended read from my real estate economics course, was Adam Smith, probably the world's most famous economist, his book, The Wealth of Nations. I'm always telling people to read it. And if you're going to take me up on it, and yes, a lot of it's tedious and boring, but you'll hit these little gold nuggets of information. You go, that's very empowering, and they're things that likely you already thought of, because we have an intuitive, beyond the intellectual, we have an intuitive understanding of economics, like things like supply and demand. We get that if there's too much demand on stuff, we know it drives up the price. So if you want to read it, read this edition. Okay, it's not hard. You recognize the cover, and it is the introductions by Alan B. Kruger. But this is the book, and it's a great read. And it's empowering, and you will be able to hold your own with anybody. You want to talk economics, you cut to the chase. You say, well, are you a believer? So cut to the chase, and you'll have power over anybody that's not a believer. Because for one thing, they don't believe that they're going to live forever. They're going to die, and they're going to stop existing. So they're all invested. You can understand their logic is sick logic. It's ill logic. They're all in. They're all invested in this idea that they're not going to exist. There's not going to be any accountability. There's not going to be any judgment day for these people because they're not believers. That's their free will choice to choose to be agnostic or atheistic or whatever. Just don't care. They're indifferent. They're complacent about these things. They find them irrelevant, impertinent. So don't bother me. I'm logical. I was taught and trained. My parents told me and my teachers told me that I'm the smart one because I'm successful. So don't try to tell me what success means. I know what it means. It means having a lot of money. Money, you got it? So everything's measured in money. So it's very hard to reach some people because they really believe that they got it going on. But you can do it. At least you yourself, you can be empowered with the knowledge. And you see, looking at it from God's vantage point, you understand the logic in saying this is earth. So if our paradigm was one where we were all born infinitely wealthy, okay, unspeakably rich, okay, ultimately prosperous, you understand that we would have to serve one another if the system was going to keep working. And we were going to keep on bartering and trading and working together to create the infrastructure and all the technology and everything else and have this great superfluity, this great abundance, this great excess of everything we want and need. Then we're going to have to figure it out. You see, it's a God, but God gave us the wherewithal. He gave us the brain and the imagination and the godly instinct to work together and to do these things. It's not the capital. You could sit on a mountain of capital and nothing's going to get done without a willing workforce, unless, of course, you enslave them. Hence the whole history of enslavement and oppression and tyranny, and it's carried on right into today. For whatever reason, we had a reprieve for a short while where somehow we got the oppressors off our backs and America was established, and we had some great foreparents that set the standard and said, look, America stands for freedom and security and all these constitutional rights that we should have, God-given rights, okay, that can unsurpassable. Do you understand that that is what America embodies, is the freedom? And if you're not financially free, then you're not free. So it's an unconditional freedom that we're seeking. This happiness has to involve unconditional freedom.